Well, good morning, Alpine Guy here. This morning we're going to show you how to do some diagnostic test on the Dometic RM1350 four-door fridge, if you happen to have this model fridge in your RV unit. And so what we're going to do is open the refrigerator up. And as you can see, it's empty because we're sitting here parked at the house. And we are looking at the control panel. And so to enter the diagnostic mode, what we're going to do is press the temp set button and the on-off button. So we're going to press and hold the temp set button and press the on-off button, and this display should light up and it should show F and then some sort of a numerical value, in this case 60, which is telling us that the temperature sensor says the refrigerator is 60 degrees Fahrenheit right at the moment. And so that's testing that we're communicating correctly from the eyebrow panel. The display is indicating what we should be seeing, and it's communicating out to the fridge control board. And again, you can see that we are still in diagnostics mode, step number 1. And now what we're going to do is press the temp set button one time, and you see the LA come on, and you see the word on. So that tells us that the LA heater system has been turned on. And if you noticed, the interior light lit up when I went into the LA heater test. Beforehand, when I turned the fridge on in test mode, this light was off. Again, still indicating a successful test. So that tells us that if we were operating the fridge in cold weather, the LA heater is going to work, and it's going to keep the refrigerator operating properly, and that the freezer section should cycle on and off like it should to maintain the food frozen. Okay, we are still in step 2 of the diagnostic test, and we're now going to press the temp set button one more time, and this is going to enter into the electric mode and test the electric heating elements. And you see where it says AC and the word on. And so that is successful. That's what we want to see. That means that the electric heaters are communicating and they're actually turning on. If there was an error, it's either going to show an E0 or E1, which means either it's not communicating or that there's a problem with the heating elements or the control board to the heating elements. Okay, we are still in step 3. So now we are, as you can see, it still says AC on, telling us that the AC heaters are working. And now we're going to press the temp set button one more time, and this will enter the DP or D plus mode. And you can see the DP, and you can see there's no further actions, no display there, because again, in this unit, it's in a fifth wheel and I don't have auto locking doors. If this was in a Class C motorhome, the door motor actuator would move and we would get an indication that that had occurred. Okay, we're going to the last step. We're currently in step 4. So we're now going to press the temp set button one more time. And what this is going to do is test the LP mode. And so you see that it says LP and on. And what we want to see is that FL. That means the flame sensor has been detected and LP is flowing, and you can't hear it, but I heard the burner light up outside on the refrigerator. And so this indicates a successful test of the LP mode. Gas is flowing, the valve open, the igniter fired, lit the flame, and the flame sensor is detecting that. And so that tells us that everything is working correctly in the LP mode. If you notice, the interior light is still on because we are still in diagnostics mode. And so now to exit diagnostic mode, we're simply going to press the off button. And when I do that, the interior light is going to turn off. And you can see the interior light is off. and the display is off. And now if I turn the refrigerator back on, like so, the refrigerator is trying to light up. I could cycle it to the LP mode, or I could cycle it to the auto mode. And you can see that when I'm in the normal operation mode, either electric or LP, that the interior light is on like it should be. Well, that gives you a quick down and dirty on the 5 simple steps that you can, diagnostic steps that you can use. Testing the Dometic RM1350. Now what I'm going to do is just touch bases on a couple of things that on the RM1350 that a lot of the owners don't realize. Everybody talks about, well, my lower section of my refrigerator is not cooling proper, and you'll see hundreds and hundreds of people say, well, you need to adjust the thermistor. Well, I hate to tell you this, folks, but on the RM1350 you cannot adjust the thermistor. I'm looking up at the inside of the refrigerator section at the top, and as you can see, here's the thermistor. It is non-adjustable. It's mounted there. On Norcold units or other Dometic units, there'll be a thermistor mounted usually on the far right fin, and it can be slid up and down on the fin so that you can adjust the temperature. Not so with the Dometic RM1350. Another point on the Dometic RM1350 that causes a lot of problems with cooling is people have a tendency to slam these doors, and when they slam these doors, this flapper door, which is mounted on the left-hand side, that's this door right here, it has to go inside this notch and hopefully rotate over just like that. And when that does that, what that does is it provides a sealing surface for the right-hand door to seal against. Hence, we get a good tight seal of our refrigerator doors. I have the little slide clip installed right now, which came with the refrigerator, and what that does is keeps the doors partially cracked open but secured when the Alpine roof is not being used, and so that air actually circulates inside and we don't get mold buildup and things like that. And so the point I'm trying to make is when you are closing these doors, always close this left door first. If you close the right door first, or if you slam it like some people do, and now you try to bring this left door in and you slam it, you have no idea if that inside flap actually flipped over like it should have or not. And in this case, it did flip over, but sometimes that door can hang up because there's some food particles or it just didn't actuate right, the spring didn't move it right, and so this doesn't flip over, it stays back over in the retracted position, and you don't realize it, and you close this door not realizing that this right-hand door has nothing to seal against. So there's a tip for you, and again, I can't stress enough, when you're opening and closing these doors, treat them gently. You will find that the refrigerator is going to last a lot longer. And to wrap up the inside portion of the Dometic RM1530 diagnostic checks, there's one other thing that can happen, and it happens on this refrigerator occasionally. In the back here, you'll see a plastic tray, and I just removed this plastic tray, and you can see a hole down there. And what that hole is that is your moisture drip drain that runs to the outside of the back of the refrigerator. And the idea of this tray is that it catches all of that moisture and prevents the water from leaking down, and you find a big puddled up mess down here at the bottom. And a lot of times what we find is when we travel and we get to some place, we'll find that this tray, and you can see how I have this little cattywampus like so. You can see that it's crooked, and you can see that it's not going to drain through that hole. It's going to drop all the water right down the back side of the refrigerator unit. So that's an item that you need to check every time when you set up. This shows the tray properly installed, and you can see that the drain hole from the plastic clear tray is now actually in the hole at the back of the refrigerator, so that any moisture coming off of these fins right here is going to drip down into this plastic tray and then exit out through the drain hole, out through the drain tube on the back side of the refrigerator. So that's a point to check every time you set up. And we're now on the outside of the Alpine, and what I'm going to do is remove this lower access panel, and we'll show you a couple of things to pay attention to inside the refrigerator. You also have an upper access panel, and you should remove that panel at least once or twice a year, depending on what the camping conditions are that you camp in. If you're camping in a real dusty area, remove that upper vent panel and use an air compressor and blow those fins out and stuff, and blow the area out. It'll keep the unit running much more satisfactorily. You notice that these two catches that keep this vent panel in place, they are horizontal. That's the way they need to be. If you have one of them like this, then what's going to happen is that can move, and it road vibration, and you'll get someplace and find this whole panel is gone. Now what we're going to do is remove this panel, and I'll pause the camera for a second. And here we are with the panel removed from the lower section, and just point out a couple of items to pay attention to. You note this corrugated tube. This is the drain hose that comes from the inside of the refrigerator section, and this is where the water will drain. And note that in the end there is a little white plastic button. It's a check valve actually, and it has a couple of small holes in it. If this is missing, then your RM1350 is not going to cool correctly. It's going to be warm, and you're going to have all kind of issues. So make sure that this is in place. Also, you want to make sure that this hose is routed around the outside of this accumulator tank. When I originally bought this hose was routed behind, down along the wall, and so all of the water would be dripping right down inside here. And you have a couple of QD connections along with a fuse, so you don't want water there. Position it so it's right here, and this way it'll drip right out and run right down the side of the wall. On the RM1350 fridge, there are 3 fuses. One of them is an inline fuse right here. It's covered with a cover, and I can't pull it off one-handed, but this is an ATC fuse, runs up to this relay. This relay controls your fan circuit and a couple of other circuits. So if this fuse blows, your fans aren't going to run, and you're not going to be a happy camper. This is the control board for the entire refrigerator, both LP and 120 electric modes. There are 2 fuses inside here, and we'll zoom in. You can see the red fuse there. That's an ATC fuse. That's for the 12-volt side. And then we will look over to the right, and you will see a glass fuse. That is for the 120 electric mode, and that is what sends through the circuit, sends 120 volts AC to the electric heating elements. There are 2 of them, and they are mounted up inside this heating stack that you may or may not see right there. You can get a good picture of it. Also on this heating stack, you'll see 2 wires, a red and yellow, and then in between it you'll see a small black circular device. This is the overheat protection device. There's a little button in the center of that. If that pops out, then it opens the circuit up, and your electric heating elements will not work. The flue stack won't get hot, and so it won't operate in electric mode. That pretty much covers up what I wanted to cover on the outside. Just keep it clean. As you can see, this fridge is 11 years old, and the inside is pretty darn clean. There's a little dust in here that could be wiped down, and a little dust right in here that I usually wipe this down. In fact, as I did last trip, with a damp wet rag to keep it clean. But overall, for 11 years old, the interior looks pretty clean. And just very quickly, I will put the exterior lower panel on. You want to make sure that you turn these buttons so that the slot is horizontal, like so. And then give it a pull test to make sure it won't come off. If you mess up and leave these two buttons with the slot turned vertical like this is going to vibrate out, and this is going to happen. The wind is going to catch it, and once the wind catches it, it's going to rip this panel off, and you're not going to be a happy camper when you get back home.